Imagine a tank so heavily armed it doesn't just roll into battle, it erases whatever dares to stand in its way. In the 41st millennium, that weapon is the Repulsor Executioner, the Space Marine's floating fortress of steel and fire. Welcome back to Brush and Blood, where I paint Warhammer miniatures while diving into stories of war, history, and conspiracy.
Quick disclaimer before we dive in, this video is for entertainment purposes only. Some of the facts, stories, or lore may not be 100% accurate, and that's okay. The goal here isn't to be a perfect Warhammer encyclopedia, it's just to share some fun stories, cool bits of history, and have something entertaining to listen to while I paint. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride.
Today, I'm painting the Repulsor Executioner, one of the most feared tanks in the Space Marine arsenal. And while we build up its firepower on the painting table, we'll explore the lore of this machine, the role of tanks in real history, and the secrets of armored warfare. What is the Repulsor Executioner? The Repulsor Executioner is the ultimate Primaris battle tank. Unlike the Rhino or Land Raider, it uses anti-grav repulsor fields instead of treads, allowing it to glide across the battlefield like a hovering fortress. It's armed with macroplasma incinerators, laser destroyers, and enough secondary weapons to reduce infantry squads to ash. Where it appears, enemies scatter because they know once the Executioner locks onto a target, there's no escape. Fun facts about the Repulsor Executioner. It's not just a transport, it can carry 6 Primaris Marines, even while blasting away. Its firepower rivals the Land Raider, but it's faster and can deploy troops directly into battle. The Executioner's repulsor field doubles as armor, pushing back grenades and slowing charges. It was designed by Archmagos Belisarius Cawl as part of the Primaris project, a controversial leap forward in Space Marine tech. Real-world parallel: modern tanks. The Repulsor Executioner is the Warhammer 40K answer to the modern main battle tank. Think the M1 Abrams, the Leopard 2, or the Russian T-14 Armata. Each of these is a national symbol, a rolling message of power. Like the Executioner, they're not just weapons, they're political statements. To field one is to say, we will dominate the battlefield. But tanks in history also remind us of cost. In World War II, none struck more fear than the German Tiger I. Its 88mm gun could destroy Allied tanks before they even got into range. Soldiers described the sound of its engine as enough to chill their blood. Real battle. Villars, Bocage, 1944. In June 1944, just after D-Day, British forces rolled into the French town of Villers-Bocage. They thought the way was clear, but hidden in the hedgerows was Tiger commander Michael Whitman. In minutes, Whitman's Tiger tore through the British column, knocking out tanks, carriers, and transports. The British advance collapsed. It was one tank, one commander, changing the course of a battle. The Tiger was terrifying, but it also became a symbol of obsession. Entire strategies were built around stopping these machines. Soldiers feared them even when none were present because the legend of the Tiger was as powerful as its gun, bringing it back to 40 Kelvin. That's exactly the fear a Repulsor Executioner projects in Warhammer. One tank, fielded at the right moment, can turn the tide of war. And just like the Tiger, it becomes more than steel and fire. It becomes a story, a legend, and a weapon of the mind as much as the battlefield. The Repulsor Executioner is the Warhammer 40 Kelvin answer to the modern main battle tank. Think the M1 Abrams, the Leopard 2, or the Russian T-14 Armata. But history shows us that even the strongest tanks can be brought down. None were feared more than the German Tiger I. Its 88mm cannon could destroy Allied armor from over a mile away. Soldiers dreaded even hearing its engine. Real battle, Villers-Bocage, 1944. In June 1944, Tiger ace Michael Whitman ambushed a British column at Villers-Bocage. Within minutes, his single tank destroyed dozens of vehicles, halting the advance. It was proof of how one machine in the right place could dominate a battlefield. Turning the tide, outnumbering the Tiger, but the Allies learned to adapt. Shermans, Cromwells, and even infantry with explosives began swarming Tigers. They couldn't match them one-to-one, but by coordinating numbers, mobility, and sacrifice, they could overwhelm them. In the end, the Tiger wasn't invincible. It was just a machine, and once its legend was broken, victory became possible. The same is true in Warhammer. A Repulsor Executioner is a fortress bristling with guns, armored like a moving bastion, and dreaded by Xenos and heretics alike. But it's not unstoppable. Tyranids can swarm it with endless waves of chittering beasts, tearing at its hull until even ceramite gives way. Orcs will pile rockets, squigs, and sheer reckless numbers against it until it finally falls. Even guardsmen, with massed Lascanon fire and determination, have brought these floating fortresses down. The Executioner is terrifying, but like the Tiger tank, it has one weakness. It makes enemies desperate enough to throw everything at it. Here's a Warhammer battle story. The Siege of Gathlamor. During the Indomitus Crusade, the Primaris Marines fought a brutal campaign to liberate the Shrine World of Gathlamor, a world overrun by Necron war hosts. The Necrons had raised pylons that disrupted orbital bombardments, forcing the Space Marines to fight their way through wave after wave of destroyers, scarabs, and monoliths. At the heart of the counterattack rolled 3 Repulsor Executioners, their macroplasma incinerators burning like miniature suns. Side sponsons stitched fire across swarms of scarabs, while the laser destroyers cracked open Necron armor like glass. The Executioners became mobile fortresses, pushing through narrow cathedral streets, firing non-stop, their machine spirits roaring. Marines clung to their hulls as they advanced, using the tanks as moving walls of ceramite and flame. But the Necrons would not relent. A monolith phased into reality before the shrine gates, its Gauss arcs lighting the battlefield. The Executioners locked on 3 beams of destructive energy, meeting one ancient war machine. In a single blinding flash, the monolith cracked apart, collapsing into shards of living metal. The shrine was saved, but only 2 of the Executioners crawled out of the battle, blackened, scarred, their machine spirits half broken. To the Marines of that crusade, those tanks became legends, honored as much as heroes in armor. Secret projects and superweapons. Superweapons are nothing new in Warhammer or in real history. They're always born of desperation, the belief that one ultimate weapon can win a war. But history shows us that these projects are often doomed. 2. Real-world failed superweapons. The German Maus Super Heavy Tank, World War II. At 188 tons, the Maus was the heaviest tank ever built. So heavy, it broke bridges and sank in mud. Only 2 prototypes were completed, both captured before they ever saw real combat. An unstoppable monster that couldn't actually move. The Soviet Tsar Tank, 1915. A massive tricycle-shaped war machine with 2 enormous wheels and a tiny back roller. It looked terrifying on paper, but in reality, it bogged down in soft ground and was abandoned. Soldiers laughed at it as a monument to wasted ambition. The American T-28 Super Heavy Tank, World War II. Built to smash the Siegfried Line, it weighed nearly 100 tons and crawled at just 8 miles per hour. By the time it was ready, the war had moved on and the T-28 became nothing but a museum piece. The V-3 Cannon, World War II, Germany's so-called supergun, designed to bombard London from 100 miles away. It was so unreliable and vulnerable to bombing that it never fulfilled its purpose. All of these projects shared one thing. They promised unstoppable power, but they collapsed under their own ambition. That's the curse of the superweapon. The dream of invincibility rarely survives contact with reality. Who built the Repulsor? In Warhammer, the Repulsor Executioner is a child of ambition too, created by Archmagos Belisarius Cawl. Cawl is the tech priest responsible for the Primaris Marines, Guilliman's greatest gamble to save humanity. He spent 10,000 years experimenting in secret, crafting weapons the Imperium had never seen before. The Repulsor was one of them. A hover tank that abandoned tracks for grav plates, able to carry Primaris warriors straight into battle while annihilating enemies with devastating firepower. But Cawl's genius is controversial. Many in the Adeptus Mechanicus whisper that his designs tread too close to tech heresy. The Imperium clings to tradition, and the Repulsor Executioner is not tradition. It's innovation forced upon a crumbling empire. And like the Maus or the Tsar Tank, some commanders argue the Repulsor is too big, too complex, too costly. Yet others call it the savior of the Primaris, a fortress that keeps them alive long enough to strike. Now check out this mini-story. Cawl unveils the Repulsor. When Guilliman awoke from stasis and launched the Indomitus Crusade, humanity was dying. The galaxy was burning, split in half by the Great Rift. It was then that Archmagos Belisarius Cawl revealed what he had hidden for 10,000 years. Not just the Primaris Marines, but the weapons to carry them into war. Among them was the Repulsor Executioner. Where once the Astartes relied on land raiders and rhinos, now came something stranger. A tank without treads, its grav plates humming with arcane power, its guns glowing with the wrath of the Omnissiah. The first executioners descended onto a besieged shrine world. The Imperial Guard had fought for weeks against orcs, pinned down and surrounded. Then, with a roar like thunder, the repulsors glided forward, their plasma incinerators igniting mobs, their laser destroyers splitting war machines in half. To the guardsmen on the ground, it looked like the Emperor himself had sent angels of iron to save them. When the smoke cleared, the orcs were broken. The guard knelt, giving thanks. And for the first time, the galaxy saw the Repulsor Executioner not as heresy, but as salvation. Cawl had given Guilliman a weapon to carry his new sons across the stars. Psychology of tanks, symbols of fear. Tanks are more than steel and guns, they're symbols of fear. In World War I, when the first British tanks appeared on the Somme, German soldiers called them Devil's Chariots. They weren't just effective, they were terrifying, hulking shapes, belching smoke and fire, rolling over trenches, where men once thought they were safe. By World War II, the sound of tank treads alone could send entire companies fleeing. Soldiers didn't need to see a Tiger or a Sherman, they only needed to hear that grinding steel in the dark to imagine death was already upon them. Psychologists call this the aura of invincibility. When a weapon becomes larger than life, it doesn't just fight battles, it breaks morale. The enemy gives up before the first shot is even fired. The Repulsor Executioner is built on that principle. It's not just a gun platform, it's a moving cathedral, covered in purity seals, lit with plasma fire, its hull humming with machine spirit wrath. To heretics, orcs, or traitors who see it glide onto the battlefield, the Executioner looks less like a tank and more like a judgment. In Warhammer, fear is a weapon as real as bolter fire. A Repulsor Executioner doesn't just destroy bodies, it destroys hope. And that's why tanks matter in our world and the grimdark of the 41st millennium. They remind us of a truth as old as war itself. Sometimes the battle isn't won with strength or strategy. Sometimes it's won with fear. The fear of something so massive, so unstoppable that men lose the will to stand against it. Orcs versus the Repulsor. Executioner orcs aren't like men. They don't fear death the same way we do. They live for the fight, roaring into battle, no matter the odds. But even orcs know when something is wrong. During the Indomitus Crusade, a warband of orcs poured onto the shrine world of Merconia, their wagons and trucks thundering across the plains. They laughed as lasguns snapped against their hides, their mobs chanting for "Wah!" Then, the Repulsor Executioners appeared. The tanks didn't rumble forward like the orcs expected. They glided silent, eerie, unnatural. Plasma incinerators charged with a howl like a living beast. The first shot vaporized an orc battle wagon in a ball of sunfire. The second tore a knob in half, armor and all. Within minutes, the executioners had carved burning lines through the orc horde. And for the first time, the orcs hesitated. Wah! Chants faltered. Some tried to charge, others broke, scattering into the dust. To the Marines, it was victory. To the orcs, it was something worse than death. The sense that maybe, just maybe, this fight wasn't fun anymore. Here's our finished Repulsor Executioner. A floating fortress, a war machine turned into a cathedral of firepower. It's more than just a tank. It's a symbol. In the grim darkness of the far future, the Executioner doesn't whisper subtlety, it shouts the Emperor's wrath, daring the enemy to even try and stand. UHA. In the next episode of Brush and Blood, we'll move from heavy armor to heavy firepower, painting a squad of Hellblasters, the Primaris Marines armed with plasma weapons powerful enough to melt even the toughest foes. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss it. And here's my question for you. If you were on the tabletop or in the 41st millennium, what units would you bring to try and bring down a Repulsor Executioner? Tyrannid monsters? Orc rockets? Chaos Daemon engines? Drop your best anti-tank picks in the comments below. I'd love to see what you'd field. As for me, I'd bring a 10-man squad of fire dragons and go for the overkill at 9 inches. Huge shout out to Tisha for supplying today's miniature. Couldn't have done this episode without you.